most people that speak about truth in depthly are going to be a certain type of way. And the type of truth that they're talking about, many of them, is going to be like reason and rationality, right? And so I'll just kind of get into this next part, and then maybe I might get to a quote from Jung. But at the base of what he's saying is that in the Enlightenment, because he was going through Schiller's arguments, and then Schiller he comes out and is just like, why are we still barbarians? We've been enlightened. Reason has won the day. What is wrong with everybody? Hey, and then basically Jung is laughing at him while he's writing. It sounds like, it's like, man, what is he? He's like, what rationalism? It's like, if reason was so great, then why didn't it win for all of those decades and centuries before? If truth was so, was so dominant,
right?
And so this is what he was saying that his words is his flaw. And this is what I wrote in my book about Rand too, as well, is similar, is there's an overvaluation of truth. And so within this is what you can identify as my leanings as truth is full context, contextual knowledge, contextual facts. It's not just facts for facts' sake. It's contextual. And those are the people I lean towards when I'm listening to them, when I'm writing. Those are the people, when they say things, I'm thinking, well, that could be true. But people who just spit objective facts with no connection, I don't want to say it's not truth. It just doesn't rise to the level of what I would consider truth.
Well, it's just not useful knowledge yet. It's something that just like, hey, these facts exist. I'm like, yes, you were able to recognize that facts exist. Thank you. If I need reference, I can come to you and say, hey, what facts did you say exist again? Great. Thank you for sharing. I have that clarity now, or I have more knowledge from you than I had before. But that's not the same thing as saying, how do we use these facts? What do these facts mean? Or, in what way are these facts helpful? Like we're not getting to that next level of interpretation. I think that's a helpful distinction for me to make, to say like, okay, certain people focus on how many facts they can remember, and certain people are trying to say these facts are useful. Certain facts can be more useful than others, and so we can use our critical thinking and have this criteria of utility to say, all right, let's categorize some of these facts into the useful category and focus on those things when we are speaking to each other, so our conversation is more productive. And that's a different value set or different goal. And I think that's helpful to be able to communicate early on. We're just like, oh, truth matters. I'm like, yes, it does. What truth matters? Because it's great that you want to focus on facts and say things exist. Yes. What things exist in this context that actually matters to us? Because that's what conversation is supposed to be helping with.
I guess it's a couple of things that you said that I think we can get back to, because I probably forgot. It's piqued my attention, but it's like there's a mechanism here. And I think my issue is that people are taking one side or the other. And this is kind of what I want to get to. So I'm gonna just jump into the next part. It's not the next part, it's just a bullet point, and to try to introduce something new in here. And so just kind of going back and forth with, the computer, whatever. And it says, explain how humans conflate their interpretations, reasoning, or rationality with observed facts and reality. Observations provide raw external data, while reason transforms these into subjective interpretations. These are two distinct elements of truth, but they are often treated as one. And this is my thing. It's often treated as one.
Yep.
That's how people, and to me, I see it you could say it with religion, but you see it with every framework. I didn't mean to say, you see it with reason, but you see it with every framework. If you're not effectively taking the facts and then getting to reason, or taking the facts and then getting to your judgment, and then you're just like, okay, if you treat everything like a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
And so it becomes, I know why that happened. Jesus said this. The God said that. And this is, it's like, how can all of the things that we said be Jesus damned us? Or, you know what I'm saying? Or God damned us. But this is how people start. They're like, oh, I have this framework. This is my framework for thinking. And it's not just religion. It's anybody who takes a specific position, and it's not that you have to be adaptable all the time. It's just that be honest, just be earnest about understanding the mechanism, the whole, how facts lead up into a point. And then not even say a point, how facts lead up into a reasonable position. And then once you gain enough context, you can apply that reasonable position to situations as you go along.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to be mentally rigorous. It's good to actively think through what's been going on with data you have, and only change your conclusions based off of new data. If you get new data, you're like, okay, this changes the context now. We are now in a different situation than we were before. We didn't know this now. We didn't know this before, so we made the best conclusion of what we had. Now we have new things. Now we get to course correct, and all our interpretations, or a lot of our interpretations, are trying to take what we observe and make some sort of framework or perspective, a worldview that allows us to function in the world a little bit better and achieve our goals. And so I think it's helpful to stay cognizant of what the data is. And as we get better data, we do better things, make better choices, at least.
That's true. I mean, but are people doing that? I guess is a question. And because have you ever heard anyone say that they're two distinct elements of truth, but they're many times viewed as one? Have you ever heard anybody say that?
No. I've not heard people say that.
But does it sound honest to you? Or
I mean, that is a true statement, because I've seen people, or I've observed people conflate the two. They're like, what happened, and my interpretation of what happened, I was saying, this is the truth. Why don't you know the truth? Why don't you allow the truth to dictate your actions? I'm like, you have not even communicated what you think truth is. And I don't know that you can, because you are putting all the things together, and in your mind, it is clear as day. But in the rest of our minds, we are all wondering what your experience is, because clearly you reached the conclusion. And that conclusion must have been based on something, because it wasn't based on just an observation of the facts. You made a judgment call here somewhere. What were you doing? Why don't you say that? Like, use your words. But yeah, it happens a lot. That kind of observation happens a lot, which is challenging to deal with.
It's challenging to deal with. I would venture to say that it's not as challenging to deal with if you know what you're dealing with. Because I think sometimes, man, people who develop, what would you call it, like a deep context, or I don't want to say full, because that's almost like absolute, but a deep context for ideas or any type of phenomena or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think they think that they automatically just think that they're smarter than everybody else, right? And I'm not saying that they aren't, but what I'm saying is that if you've taken the position that I know already, then you're really not in a position to learn anymore, you know? And so this is kind of like the way I try to go through life is just, I understand my context. My context is what helps me to maneuver quickly when I'm doing things. Yes, everything looks like a hammer sometimes, and that's how I'm going to go about it, especially when it comes to morality or ethics, really, when it comes to ethics. I still keep an active mind, because I'm always trying to take in data. But at the same time, you can't, the brain has limitations, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can't just be super objective like we were talking about last week. Like, you can be objective. You want to look at the facts, but you don't want to not have any context to shape these facts into any meaning, you know? And I encounter people who don't, to me, if you're supposed to be highly intelligent, highly well-read, you know, and know a lot of things, you should understand that these are basic differences between people. And maybe this is a fundamental thing I'm getting from young, or this is an understanding that I'm coming into, but I'm able to like shift. So like even when I put in the book and I say speak to sensation, if that what that means is that I'm just talking about the facts and the facts themselves. I'm not. I have a specific meaning that I'm talking about, but maybe I might be talking to a person that's not thinking with that type of context. I still want to communicate, and just because they're not thinking with that type of context doesn't mean what they're seeing is wrong. It just means that it's only going but so deep in a directional way. That's what I mean about having a full understanding of both sides of this picture.
And that's fair. I mean, to have both sides, to get both sides means you actively spent time reflecting on your own perspective and gathering data from other people to reflect on the other people's perspective, which takes work and effort and time that a lot of people have not all demonstrated in a lot of people's conversation. And so I think it's helpful to distinguish when people say things that are unhelpful, to ask poignant questions or mention the common fallacies that people have fallen into before. And, if they're willing to go on that journey and keep thinking, great. And if not, then move on and find someone else who is.